Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first video recorded podcast, which has been, an experiment and it's exciting and we're moving forward. And yay! As always, I'm joined by the lovely and
Hooray!
accomplished and amazing and so thankful that she's on this planet, Cy.
Oh, thank you, Tessa. I'm so happy you're here too. And we got to cross paths in the same lifetime. We're so lucky.
I know. Well, I mean, who's to say we haven't crossed paths in other lives? I,
I'm
I
sure we
mean,
have.
I think so too. So I came across a post on Instagram as usual that gave me a lot of thought. And it's a quote for allegedly from Keanu Reeves that says, "None of us are getting out of here alive, so please stop treating yourself like an afterthought. Eat the delicious food, walk in the sunshine, jump in the ocean." It's a great quote. I did a little due diligence. Turns out Snopes says probably not Keanu Reeves, but sounds like it, right? So let's go with it. It's a great quote. And I think it happens a lot. Like I notice I do it with my spouse a lot, right? Like I am probably much kinder to him than I am to myself sometimes, right? Like
Mm,
I'm apt to get a drink for him, but we'll, decide not to get one for me, or it's small things, big things. But I thought to myself, wow, this is such a good topic because we talk about frequently how we bring in a bunch of negativity about other people, but we don't really talk about as much how much negativity we might attribute to ourselves, right? Whether it's we don't want to eat the delicious food or we don't want to walk in the sunshine because we don't have time because we've given our time away to everybody else, but we don't do the things that
mhm.
fill our cup up, right? And uplift ourselves. And I'm starting to feel like I might be failing in this regard. No, that's a strong word. I feel like I should do better in this regard, right? Like I should live this Psy world and go, yeah, pleasure for myself, important, right? However you seek it. Is it the sunshine? Is it the food? Is it entertainment? Is it peace and quiet?
Mm.
We also need to start doing it more because it does fill us up. And when we fill ourselves up, we're helping everybody else too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it feels like it's important to, I feel you judging yourself. And I want to share that, when I entered my pleasure era, as I like to say, it was just conscientiously deciding that I'm not doing this enough. It's exactly what you're talking about right now. Just like, we're so programmed to put ourselves last often. It's not
Mm-hmm.
even an afterthought. It's just like, literally like, what else am I supposed to be doing for somebody else, right? So, and I guess the other part too is like it's hard to, do these big like I don't want to say big gestures, but just like these big romantic ideas of what like, self-care is or what happy times would look like or vacation, is the thing that sticks out to me where it's like everyone thinks that a vacation is going to solve their lives. And so just taking pleasure in the small things and like really being mindful, and enjoying the present moment is really a big part of what I was seeking because I realized, we're multitasking, we're doing 500 things at once, we're always feeling like we're not doing enough, we need to do more, we need to organize more so we can be more productive, and it just felt like, when do we get to live? When do we
Isn't
get to like enjoy anything?
is it also kind of like how I think, especially for women, I think anyone who's been othered, we are so apt to please other people because we feel like we have to work harder, be smarter, be earlier, stay longer, be all the things.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're so like pre-programmed to not think about ourselves. And I feel like it's like this cultural societal thing that I don't want it to allow us to hold us down, right? Like if we see that it's out
Mhm.
there and we see we're not filling up our cups and we're not seeking the pleasure, how do we like just break free so that we can do it?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was one of the things that I thought, would help me, is just to name it first of all, and then remind myself, and then tell other people to hold myself almost a little bit accountable. So I like to talk about it so that people um, can, you know, recognize what I'm trying to do. It helps me to remember what I'm trying to do, and it helps me feel okay about it too, I guess, because, you know, it might sound strange to people, but if you don't say it out loud, then it's just like your own little secret, and then nobody really knows. And it's just something about saying it out loud. It's almost like you're making a commitment, right?
Yeah.
You're making a commitment by stating it out loud to other people. It just like puts kind of like that higher level of commitment on it. And then it's, even if it's just a commitment to yourself, it doesn't even matter if it involves anybody at all, or if they see or, you know, change their behavior based on what you told them. It's just literally saying it out loud changes something for you, changes something in your mind where you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. It's okay. Like I should keep
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
I think identifying it is so crucial, but also like I have started scheduling it too, right? Which sounds completely nerdy, which it is, but it's also my reminder, stop, you've made up a bunch of deadlines in your head of things that you want to
Mm,
accomplish, but
mm-hmm.
all those things, the world is not going to end if I don't accomplish all those things.
Right.
And I will feel drained by the end of it because I am 100% certain I put way too many things on my to do list because that
Yeah.
is my nature. And so that's why it's so important to talk about these things because we need to, like, even if it's scheduling and it sounds so nerdy, but schedule in time to just decompress or find the pleasure or go into the sunshine or go out and have a good
Mhm.
meal or cook a good meal, whatever works for you, right?
Yeah. And I mean, if you don't prioritize it, which is how I interpret, you know, putting something on the calendar, like if you don't make time and space for something, like the world will come and eat up all your time and all your
Oh,
energy. I like to I like to call it
100%.
like the world's gonna come push you around if you don't stand up for, you know, what you want. And yeah, it's easy to lose yourself in all of the demands of the world, right? And demand of our role, of our relationship, of the just place we have in society, our jobs, or whatever obligations we feel like we have. I mean, there's always somebody and something that needs to take your time and wants to take more of your energy and your even your mind space. I think is an interesting thing, right? Like this morning, speaking of calendars, I put on my calendar every morning that I'm gonna like spend just, I think I put 30 minutes of just some kind of mindfulness, some kind of something, because you know I've never prioritized it, or it just became less and less important, or it just became the thing that I just like, you know, didn't do. And it still happens all the time, but today I was like, I feel fine this morning. I don't feel like pressured. I feel like it's Friday. It's a day that I shouldn't be like so stressed. And so I actually take advantage of that reminder today. And it's kind of
Good
funny because,
job.
you know, it's not every day, thank you, but it's not every day that I do, but yet it still serves some purpose of just reminding me like, oh, this is supposed to be a time for you. This is supposed to be a time for you to, you know, do nothing, just be mindful or just center yourself. And I found this amazing podcast actually, that I'll tell you about. It was really good, but it was like it was a monk and an investigative journalist. I think I looked up mindfulness on Spotify and it popped up, and it was so good because it was like a little bit of talk podcast and it was really interesting. And then they really did like a guided mindful meditation as well. And I was like, this is exactly what I needed because
Yay.
it was engaging enough where I wasn't, you know, bored, but it was also, you know, really what I needed to like quiet my mind. So yeah, I think it probably is different for everyone, but whatever like can kind of trick you into spending more time on
Do
you or
you?
the things that, you know, would fill your cup, I think you should do that.
I find that a lot of my friends and colleagues and people I interact with feel, I don't, yeah, maybe it is guilt. Like they feel guilty. And I think that's kind of like just our language in
Mm,
the United States, right? Like guilty pleasures as opposed to just pleasure or opposed to just like living, right? And do we
yeah.
have that like added layer that even if we can identify it, how do we break past that? Well, should you spend 30 minutes of, quiet time and a nice slow morning in a world that is just like go, 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 go all the time? And I noticed that for myself this morning because I had also a nice slow morning where I was able to just like drink coffee, listen to nature, be outside with the dogs. And then when I walked in, I was like, wow, that was really nice. Just have a slow morning. Doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah,
And it should
yeah.
because it's so fulfilling. But then I was like, oh, but I have so many things I need to do and I need to reply to all these emails. And it's just like, nope, back up, right? Like it is
Yeah.
okay to have the slow morning. It is okay to stop and listen to the podcast. It is okay to do nothing or do everything, whatever makes you
Mm,
happy and makes you feel better about yourself in the day.
yeah.
But I feel
I
like we
kind
get
of
a lot of
love it.
negative shit.
Well, yeah, but I think I think something you said is important in terms of like whatever it is that you want to do is also okay. I think that's the other interesting part about, the self-care discussion or just anything that's related to like how to, fulfill yourself. It's different for everyone, right? And so I think that's one of my favorite parts about like a meditation usually is that there's all these different like phases of it, right? Where it's like there's this phase where you're just kind of recognizing and starting to get in tune. And then there's a phase where, you're paying attention to your breath and you're kind of slowing yourself down in a way, just being mindful. And then sometimes there's a phase where it's like, just let your mind go, do whatever it wants, like just let it just run free and like think
Mm-hmm.
of anything. And I always found that part interesting because it feels like you're trying to get to a space where, you're thinking of less or you're focused on this or that or whatever. Um, but I feel like that exercise just kind of recognizes that that's also a thing to help you center yourself, right? That's also like if you need to get that energy out, do that. I think that's why some people probably love to exercise. I don't get it, but I love it for them.
It's great, right? Like you're so right that it should be without judgment, whatever works for whoever.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think it's just a matter of, what we're really talking about is prioritizing that. Like prioritizing, what brings you joy or what brings you pleasure or what brings you peace.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
some people like, they talk about the runner's high, they love to run and, and they might not get to do it enough because they feel like they got to get to work right away or whatever. But it's different for everybody. Like playing music for me is a thing that I want to do more because it's just like when I'm doing it, nothing else really matters. But it's like you literally will fill up your whole schedule, your whole day with everything else except for the thing that will make you feel at peace, right? And so I always believe in habits. And so that's where my mind goes when we talk about these things. It's just like how do we develop, like a habit of just making time and space for ourselves where we it feels less hard. I feel like there's all the pressure, sure, but it's also like it can be hard just because we don't have a habit of doing it, right? Like we don't have a regular practice of doing it. So whatever that looks like, however you can, I don't know, put your running shoes by your bed or, like I don't know, just take like a mandatory break right before, right before lunch or something, whatever you can pair it with that's going to make it more likely that you do it, then that can really help.
And I think you just hit on something really important. It's so much easier when it becomes a habit, right? Like the
Hmm.
first making that first decision to like treat yourself as somebody who's important in your life moves past it helps you do it again and again and again. I know for a long time I thought it was completely selfish to want to be, or I was told, I should say, I was told so many times that it was selfish to want to be happy, right? Which seems
Mm.
absurd in my mind. And I didn't understand it. But once I like broke through those expectations and was like, pretty sure happiness is my goal in this world, right? Or doing the things that bring me happiness, right? However you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Is it chicken or the
Yeah.
egg? But it's that repetitive mindset that allows you to come back to it again and again that I think helps so much, right? Like I've been making sure that I've been baking more because I like the slow lifestyle, right? Like knowing that you have to be patient as the bread rises and it could take
Mm.
overnight and you're just like in the moment and it helps you focus so much. And I find that when I do repetitive stuff that prioritizes things that I enjoy, I'm so much better at everything else, right? Like I am
Mm,
more attentive in my work, I am more attentive to people I love. I think it's that you're living with more intent when you start
mm.
prioritizing yourself, right? Like it's easier because you started with the intent for yourself and how you want to live, and that helps spill out to being more mindful and attentive, and with acting with more intent toward everybody that you interact with and love and care for.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but like just those words of caring, right? You care for yourself, you can care for others in a more, intentional, meaningful way. If you're paying attention to yourself, it's like you can pay attention to other people's needs too in a way that, might feel really good for you. But I it's something popped up for me when you were talking about, the fact that the other side of that, what we do usually, if we're not setting intention, again, like the world will push you around, right? But it's like you're always looking for like the next thing you're supposed to be doing too. Or like for like what did I forget that I'm supposed to do? Or like, like you're literally just kind of like scrambling if you don't have that centering for yourself. So like
Yeah,
setting intentions, I think definitely a big part of it. Because otherwise, again, like people will pull you every which way, of course, and sometimes we do it to ourselves in a way. But I would argue, of
yeah,
course, that all of that is coming from external, right? It's coming from all of these pressures that are invisible, but they're definitely there.
yeah. And I mean, I notice it even with like the lists I keep in my head around the
Hmm.
house, like where you should feel the most
Mm,
pleasure and be able to, you know, do what brings you the most pleasure at home. But still in my head, I'm like, I don't think anybody has dusted the light fixtures. Have I done all the laundry so that there's no laundry anywhere to do in this world? And I know that I do it to myself, and I've become better at acknowledging that I have created these lists and these things that I think need to be done, but it's only me, right? There's no expectation from anyone else in my household. I just do it to myself. And I think it's important for me at least to recognize that all these things that I'm prioritizing before myself that I think I need to get done are just like
hmm
made up things, right? And
hmm
it's so, as you say, like protecting yourself not only from others who are taking your time, but you do it to yourself. At least I do it to myself. And that's a big
Yeah.
breakthrough when you're able to like say that to yourself.
Well, I think two things that are interesting there is yes, you're doing it to yourself in that like you are actually making the list. But
Yeah.
one, I just recognize that like that pressure comes from somewhere. It's not
Oh
just like
yeah.
generated from inside of you, like that's coming from somewhere. It's somebody's voice, it's somebody's expectation, right? That you've internalized first. But the second thing
Yes.
is you're right in that whatever wherever it came from, it also doesn't matter. You have like full agency and power over it, right? Because you're the one who's creating it
Yep.
in this moment, in this time, and in this space. You actually have the power to stop it, to change it, to pause it, to reprioritize. Oh, deprioritize is my new favorite word. Just like
Oh, I like that.
deprioritize. Everyone's always like, you got to prioritize, you got to prioritize. I'm like, well, what are we deprioritizing, right? Because if you're not
Hmm.
deprioritizing, you're not prioritizing actually.
Yep.
Because we're in a world of like everything's important, everything is vital, everything is crucial, right? Like there's just so much there that you have to learn how to find out what really matters and when it matters, and actually prioritize what you need and deprioritize the things that you do not actually need to do, right? And so that when I hear you talk about your list, that's what I think about is I'm sure all of those things are important to you and there's nothing wrong with that, but also like what needs to happen today, what needs to happen this morning, what needs to
Yeah.
happen in this hour, and I don't know how, I don't know the best way for every person on how to like let go of things, but I think that's an important thing we never talk about. We always talk about how to do more, how to be more productive, how to be more efficient, like these are the things that are the most important things. But we never talk about like how do we plan so that we can actually be present in this moment.
Yeah. And when you talked about how these pressures come from someone else, absolutely. Yes, 100%. I grew up in a museum, not literally, but I had a mother who
That level.
treated a household
Level.
like, yeah. And I have done a good job of letting go. And I have shared before that I have now intentionally allowed for things to be imperfect so that not only I can accept them, but for other people to realize, hey, she's not perfect, which I would
Yeah.
very much like everybody to know that I am 100% not perfect.
It helps, right? And it also, like, just the
Yeah.
narratives that you're even saying it out loud, it helps. That's what I mean is like we control our own narrative. So something that you said I relate to, I say it all the time when you said, I realized I'm the one making this up kind of thing, right? It's something that I say all the time to people when they're like, well, this person thinks that and that person is thinking this, or they're going to want me to do that. And I'm like, where are you getting that? I'm like, I'm like, this is the story that you're telling yourself. This is a story in your
Mhm.
head that you're the author, you're the illustrator, you're the entire, genesis of the story. You can't read people's minds. You don't know what they're thinking or any of that. And so even again, like all of these invisible pressures, a lot of it has to do actually with what we think other people are going to think. So that's another like kind of nut to
Oh,
like crack open, I think, right? And how does that relate
well,
to us and what
that
we're
hits
going
right
through
in the
mentally,
middle of the
emotionally?
heart, right? It's like I try so hard to make sure that I don't, I don't know if I say I don't care. I don't allow other people's opinions to settle, right? I allow them to like
Mm,
fly on by because I'm of the mindset that other people's opinions are their own business and not mine, especially when it comes to
yes,
my life, right?
yes,
But it's not a perfect practice. Sometimes people say things you're like, and sometimes they're good things, right? It's like a compliment, and you're like, oh, I feel so great about this compliment. Then you realize, wait, my value should come from me, which is a lot of overthinking on my part. I accept. But I think for me, it's important that it's kind of like consistent, right? Knowing that I can choose to prioritize, as you're saying, for me, not because it's what society expects, or my spouse, or my
yeah,
kid, or my friend, or my colleague, or whoever it might be, or some stranger in the street. And those are big steps, right? To, I don't know if it's grant yourself agency or recognize that you have agency, or,
oh yeah, you have that power. You just have to know it. You just have to
yeah,
remember. You just
yeah.
because, like I said before, like kids know, like we're born knowing that we're powerful. We're just kind of beaten out of us in a lot of different ways. And so, yeah, you just have to remember that you have it. You just have to feel it again, and recognize it and use it.
And I think for me, the language is really helpful. And I say I just have to give myself permission, right? Because I think
Mm,
through our lives, so many people have done their best to take away your ability to have permission to do things or take away your agency, however you want to look at it. And it's reclaiming it, kind of like what you said earlier, like reclaim your time, reclaim your ability to like seek pleasure
yes.
and do it for yourself. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what it looks like, just do it. I don't even know if I like
Yeah.
that Nike slogan. I'm going to go with the Adidas or Adidas slogan. Go with, you got this, right? Because I feel like that's more
Yeah.
powerful and it's less societal pressure, right? For me,
Yeah.
just do it is like societal pressure. You got this is like empowering and uplifting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So many things that came to my mind. The first thing was this is a very like nerdy suggestion probably, but when you talked about intentionality and you talked about like having, just purpose and what you want and it coming from inside, I think one of the reasons why it's really easy, or very common for so many of us to just let life push us around is it's not because we're weak. It's not because, we're not thoughtful. It's usually because, the world is very disorienting place, like we're really being look over there. Like we just like there's so much going on, pulling you, so many different ways, and it's very disorienting. So this kind of a nerdy, like I said, an idea, I guess, or application. But in my organization, we've been going through a whole lot of strategic planning work. We've been going through a whole lot of like, what are we focused on? What are we prioritizing? What are we deprioritizing? Like I talked about, and I wonder if we're missing that in our personal lives, in a way. It doesn't
Ooh.
have to be called that. Obviously, it doesn't have to be the same extent or even the same tools. But I mean, I think this is why people journal in a way. Like I never really got journaling, but I think it's because I always think journaling is like me having to just like say whatever's on my mind right now or whatever versus planning, which might sound too much for people, but at the same time, if you're going to have intention, when do you set that intention? Like you can set it on a daily, sure, but this is why I like the idea of like having an era because and naming it, because it really is, it's really just that, it's really just setting an intention and letting people know and having that commitment. But I mean, we don't really make time and space to do that as a society, right? Like everything pulls us into the distractions, the look over here type of thing. And so I don't know what that could look like on a personal level, but I feel like the more and more you set intention, the more you visualize what you want, the more likely you are to have it, right? And so we do that for other things like your work, like your house or whatever your goals are. Like you're making lists, you're setting intention, even if they're in your head, like you're very organized, like deciding what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, you're putting it on your schedule. How do we approach our own well-being in that way? How do we
That
start
is
thinking about how we can really set intention, so that we're making real goals for ourselves and maybe getting there more effectively, not effectively, but just, I mean, getting there, prioritizing what actually is a priority for us, right? Like, how do we do that?
the first word that popped into my head while you were explaining this is protect. Like we need to learn to protect that time. And
Mm,
I
yeah.
feel like I had a big learning experience where I stopped explaining why I couldn't attend certain events because I
Mm,
didn't need to explain that I had a dinner, but that dinner was with my husband because I wanted to protect that time so that I could continue to maintain a very happy relationship, right? Because I feel like
yeah.
every time you like allow your other outside pressures to like seep into your life, you're chipping away at the things that you're trying to protect, whether it's yourself or your relationships. And it's that making that choice to value yourself, right? So you're not thinking that,
Hmm.
hey, you are that afterthought. It is that you don't keep just giving yourself away. And it's okay to protect your time and protect your inner peace and protect your sanity, right? Because in this world, it's so easy
For
for it to like
sure.
slip away because you no longer feel like your life is your own because you have all these
Mm,
demands from all over the place outside of you. And
hmm.
some of them might be obligations, and some of them you might have created as obligations, and you might need to
Mm,
deprioritize those obligations into just things
hmm.
that could occur as opposed to obligations. But
Yeah,
I think you hit on a
absolutely.
really good point earlier that everything is supposed to be critical. Like I know I get that from my extended family that, you know, I really need to talk to you. Sometimes that's just I need to vent, which I understand. But if I have then chosen to drop things that were important to me, I want to be there
Hmm.
when it's important. But I don't think everybody prioritizes importance the same way I prioritize importance.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even that like example makes me think like, how do we protect our time and our priorities? Like, because I mean, just literally thinking about your question, it made me think, why do we fall for the bait all the time, first of all? Right.
So true.
I'm so guilty of that. I'm like, oh no, what's going on?
Yep.
But maybe we could find some like little bit of canned language to help us through those kinds of times when people have this sense of urgency. I've been learning some really interesting things about a sense of urgency in the workplace, and it would be really interesting to think about that on the personal level of like, how are people using this sense of urgency? Are they using it for their
Yeah.
own purposes? Are they respecting your boundaries? Have we set boundaries? Do they know how valuable your time and energy is at certain times of the day, or like different things like that? Like, have we talked about it? Have we verbalized it? Have we let people know? And are they respecting that as well, right? And the other thing that came to my mind was, practically, could we literally start asking more questions before we engage? Because, like I said, I'll fall for the bait every time. But maybe if my practice was like, oh, you need to talk right now, is it an emergency? Are you safe? Like, is it an emergency? I think is a great
Yeah.
question, because if it's an emergency, like, drop everything. I need to know how
Absolutely.
urgent it is, actually. Like, I've had this before too, where it's like people weren't urgent enough. I was like, you told me this was happening, and I was like, okay, but you didn't tell me it was like this level. If that were the case, I would have dropped everything, right? So,
Yeah.
communication is key as always. But also, like, maybe we can use that because it signals so much too. It's not only is it a useful tool to, like, tell your for you to assess the situation and decide, unapologetically what you're going to do with that information too, right? Like, you got to give yourself permission to make a decision based on that. But it also signals to other people that, like, your time is valuable, and you're not just going to give it away willy-nilly because somebody said that you should. Like,
Yeah.
you got things to do, you got stuff happening, or you've set up your day in the way that brings you the most joy, and you want to protect that, or like, it just signals so much, even just to show that you don't take that lightly, that it's important for you to know, whether or not you should be spending your time this way.
This reminds me of a practice that I have started where I have been actively protecting my time. And I have said, when I say no, I don't explain it, but then
Right.
I do offer, hey, I'm free this time, this time, this time, and this time. Is there any of
Mm-hmm.
those times that work for you? Which I don't even know if that's necessary, but it works for me to like offer other times. But the crucial part of that was not feeling the need to explain why you say no, right? Like give
Right.
yourself the power to trust that you have prioritized what you needed to prioritize and just say no. Oh my God,
I love
I didn't
that.
want to quote Nancy Reagan, but yeah, protect yourself, say no.
Oh, the power of no is what I like to say.
Yes,
The power
yes,
of no is
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah,
And you have that power. That's the other interesting thing, is like, people literally don't even realize how much power they're giving away. I love when I
right?
see somebody who's, like, just living in their power all day, and I just steal from them. I'm just like, I'm gonna do that. I love that. Like, like, when someone just flat out says no, I'm like, oh, I'm so impressed by that. And
Same.
and I and I try to practice it too. I mean, in a way that makes me feel like, I don't know, like, it feels strange at first if you're not used to, doing that, if it's not
Yeah,
part of your practice now. If your practice is to say, I'm sorry, I can't, I wish I could, all of those things that we are programmed to say. Um, I don't know. I challenge people to just maybe try it when it makes sense, because once you do it, it's just like anything else, you kind of get used to it. And
right.
then
It,
it's not
it
so
gets
hard
easier.
anymore. It gets a lot
Yeah.
easier. Just just start doing it and see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel great the first time, do it a couple more times and see if you notice any change. Because once you do it a couple times, it starts to get a lot easier, and you just, you don't feel bad about it. I think that's the strange thing, is like, making people feel bad about things is the way that we control people in society.
Isn't that awful? Oh, that's so awful, right? Like,
I know,
why
but it's
don't we?
real.
It's so real. I want to live in a world where we're building everybody up and we don't make people just feel bad about living their lives or protecting their peace or protecting their
Yes.
pleasure time or
Yes.
whatever they
Yes.
need. Like,
Actually, that's a way that we can support each other right there. That's one way that we can really support each other. I see it, more so in women than anyone else, but for anybody that feels like they have to apologize or explain themselves or make excuses. I mean, I've had times where I'm trying to schedule a meeting and someone's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. Usually during this time I like to do this," and I'm like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to explain it to me. I'm like, that's, that's your schedule. You can do, I'm like,
Yeah.
we can always find a different time. It's okay. Like, you don't have to explain yourself, and trying to let people remember, that they have that kind of power too. Just by reminding them in that moment and giving, lending that kind of like grace to people, I think can help, because otherwise, I mean, people really, again, feel like you might be judging them, and they just don't know unless you tell them.
Don't you think that by extending grace to other people, it'll make it easier to extend grace to ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And it also shows you how to do it for other people. Like, it's just like a pay it forward type of thing too. Like, if
Hmm.
somebody gives me grace, then I'm just like, oh, I love how that felt. Like, I can't
Yeah.
remember who said it, but somebody said something like, no one's going to remember what you did in your life, but they are going to remember how you made them feel. Something like that.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that sticks to me all the time, or sticks with me, because that is really what you notice when you're in an interaction with somebody, when you're talking to someone, when you're working with someone, what have you. That is really what sticks with you. Like, that's what makes you feel like you want to be around this person, or you don't want to be around this person, however they made you feel. So whenever
Yeah.
somebody does something that makes me feel good, or makes me feel warm and fuzzy, or just makes me feel, cared for, I always try to pay attention and just like literally steal whatever they did and apply it, because I want other people to feel that way around me too. And it's just that warmth. And if everybody, really just kept paying that forward, I mean, we would all be great. We would never feel the need to explain ourselves. We would never feel guilt. We would never feel terrible for things that, we shouldn't feel bad about. I mean, we're just
That
having
is
a
so,
schedule. That's
it sounds
nothing to
like
feel bad
such a
about.
dreamy world, right? Where we have grace for others, they have grace for us, and it's just this wonderful time where we're just all sweeping in front of our own doors, right? Uh, Again, I
We
guess
could
that
get
takes us
there.
back to our
Yeah.
rebellion, right? Like, let's rebel
Mm.
against these norms that we have in the United States where everything is crucial and everything's a priority and everything has to happen immediately and everything has to happen now, and you need to sacrifice your time and you need to sacrifice yourself and your well-being.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a morning I'm a I guess I'm a morning person, but I'm not a 5 a.m. morning person. But yet
That's a whole
again, there's
different
always,
kind of morning person.
right? And there's always these articles, you know, CEOs wake up at
Wake
5
up at
a.m.,
5
4
a.m.
a.m., and
Yeah.
they've slept for 2 hours and that just keeps them going. I'm like, no, eventually you're gonna fall apart. That's not how this world works. You actually need sleep. It's
You will have
restorative.
money and no sanity or body. Like, my body would rebel against me immediately if that's the way I treat myself.
Right?
I wouldn't be able
Oh,
to do that. I mean, I've forced myself to wake up when I have to, but no, it's not. I mean, it's literally everybody's different again, first of
yeah.
all. And, doing again what makes you feel at peace, what makes you feel centered, what makes you feel joyful. Like, these are the things that I think, could be great topics for when you have some meditative space, whatever that looks like, whether you
Yeah.
journal, or whether you have a walk, or whether you have any quiet time where you just get to be with yourself, or just get to be with your thoughts. In the car, I feel like the car was like one of the only meditative places I used to have before I learned about
Same.
meditation. It's just like, I'm driving, I can't read anything or type anything. You're not supposed to anyways. And
Mhm.
just listening to music and just letting your mind wander, like I talked about
Yeah.
earlier. And I think that this might be like I think I've said this before, where it's like, meditation doesn't have to be like I have a beautiful little deck, and I have, a meditation
And
pad, and
yes, the specific pillow that was recommended by somebody to sit on. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
no, we don't have to Instagram studio our, yoga space for meditation. I think you can literally meditate anytime in the day,
Yep.
doing anything, sipping a
Hmm.
little cup of tea, or literally just like laying in bed, I mean, or it being in your car, even like just taking time to notice. is really all that it is. And when you start noticing, your body, your breath, you start feeling like you're in your body again instead of it being just in your head,
Yeah.
and this might be a thing that you call on to just give some thought to just really like reflect on what brings you joy. Like, do you know what brings you joy? I feel like that's kind of the first
Ooh.
step, is to even know what brings you joy, because we're told in this capitalist society that like joy is brought on by what, buying things. I mean, that's the
Okay.
messages that we get. It's just buy
I'm
stuff,
trying not to roll my eyes. Yes, you're
you
absolutely
can
correct.
you do whatever you want to do, let your eyes wander.
Thanks.
But really, I mean, that's the message that we get all the time, right? Like, we're not this enough, we're not that enough, we should buy things, we should fill the hole with things.
Mm-hmm.
It's always things, it's always buying stuff. And it's so, first of all, I just have to notice how tragic that is, because the thing that really brings people joy more than things is other people, experiences. I mean, just I guess I'm saying that as my lived experience. That's what I observe most. But truthfully, everybody again has different things specifically that bring them joy. And I think, at the very least, we should make the time, if you're just getting started and you have no idea where to start, literally just actually knowing yourself and figuring out what actually brings you joy, not what somebody thinks should bring you joy, right? Or not what brings your friends
Mm-hmm.
joy or your family joy. Because I think people get confused about that a lot, where they're like, well, I love to see my family happy, so I like to go to the amusement park. And it's like, I don't like roller coasters, but my family does. And so I love that. And yes, it can bring you joy to see it in other people. And what brings you joy? Do we know?
And also be open to the idea that it can change. It can change every day.
Yes.
It could change every minute. It could stay the same for
Yes.
decades. You just don't know.
Yes.
But allow yourself to give yourself that grace that it can be a fluid idea and concept for you. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I feel as though there's so much of societal pressure that if you're a runner, you're running for the rest of your life. If you like to garden, you're gardening for the rest of your life, right? Like it
Mm,
can't move and adapt, whatever. And that doesn't seem right to me, right? Like I feel like a new societal pressure that's being placed on us that once you make your decision, you cannot change it. And that does not
this
seem
is
like
so
a
random.
yes.
That's not freedom, right? So it made me think
Yeah.
randomly of the hippies, who are my favorite. But like, they used to say, "Who are you today?" I think. And so I love that, because it's like, you can be whoever you want any given day of the week. You can change your mind, you can change your taste, you can change your preferences. I mean, we actually do feel different day to day, right? So every time I talk to someone, we've had conversations about this. Like, I love to ask people how they're feeling, because a lot of times we're not even encouraged to think about our feelings or recognize our own feelings in this like sterile, computer based world. It's just like, keep working. Um, but remembering that we're human beings. Like, there's humanity there. We have feelings. We have a body still. We're not avatars yet, I don't think. And
And there should be absolutely no guilt for seeking your own pleasure. And it can take
yeah,
any form that you want it to take. And that can change.
absolutely. And if the first step is to explore it, the next step is probably like taking all the judgment out of whatever that is. Like, another thing I like to do sometimes
Oh
is just
no.
think about, if nobody was here, what would I love to do right now? What would I like to watch? Or what would I like to, what activity would I want to do, or whatever. So that was another opportunity to just think about a little of mental experiment, right? Like, if you took everyone else out of the equation, what would really be
Yeah.
what you would do? Like, let's say you just had a day where everyone went out of town. What would you do with your day?
Ah, I would read for pleasure. I would bake some bread. I would cut some
Mm.
flowers. I would play with the dogs. And I probably would have a lot of silence. What would you
Uh,
do for your
See,
day?
I feel like that's it tells you so much about yourself. Just like thinking, I have not done this exercise myself because I can't even imagine having a full day to myself. But
But this is our dream
I mean,
world, right? Like our imaginary world.
I know I love this exercise for that reason. I mean, I would definitely sleep in
Yeah.
if I had nothing to do. I would just stay in bed for a good long time. Um, I would probably take like an hour long shower because I love the shower. I would definitely just play some music and learn some new songs. And then probably just like eat some great food, like have someone deliver it to me, stay home and watch some movies. And yeah, just like literally enjoy my time at home. I never, I guess it's a new era, but I never realized how much I appreciate my home until recently. I feel like I've always been a busy bee. I've always tried to like go to all the things, but you know, when you stay and just rest and just it just gives you so much time to really be, just be. Just be.
Yeah.
Just not there's like less there's just so little pressure, that you go outside, it's like, well, you gotta dress a certain way. You gotta walk a certain way or whatever. You gotta, like there's just a bunch of pressure, it feels like, anyways. And again, that's us internalizing a lot of, stuff. But just being home alone is actually kind of lovely sometimes. So that's
It
probably what
is.
I would do. I don't think I would go seeking a lot of social stuff, which is kind of wild for me. So it's fun to reflect, and that's what I mean. It's like it can, like you said, it can literally change year to year, day
Absolutely.
to day. I mean, everything changes, your needs change. Yeah, and probably after a few days like that, I mean, I remember COVID and thinking it was great for a little while, and then I got tired of it. And it really depends on the day.
But yeah, I'm thinking of takeaways, and I can only think that the concepts that have come out of our conversation today are like we need to prioritize pleasure for
Mhm.
ourselves, but we have to protect our peace so that we have that
Mm.
space for the pleasure, and we have to be active about it, but also flexible, right? Like actively protect our space, learn to say no, learn to figure out how can we prioritize the pulls that come from everybody else around us so that we are, fulfilling our responsibilities, not just like deciding to like live on a mountain by ourselves and not do anything. But there's so many like active steps in there that we need to, I know I need to work
Yeah.
on, right? Like deprioritizing things that aren't actually priorities that I put on my magic list every day, but also learning to protect my, I'll say, right to just do what I want, to bring pleasure to myself, to be a better person for myself and for everybody around me,
Mm.
right? Because I think
Yeah.
when we fill up our cup with that time to ourselves and that meditative, intentional time that we have just given to ourselves as a gift, it only helps, at least helps me be a better person for everybody around me, right? Like, 'cause I feel like I have
Oh yeah.
more patience and more love and more understanding and more compassion so that when, we get that inevitable no, I can't join or I can't do this or I can't do that, that's okay because you've given yourself the grace. You can give the other person the grace to do it for themselves.
Yes. And the name of that podcast today was The Way Out is In. And
Ooh, great name.
it just reminded me, from what you just said, of that lesson that what we're seeking from the outside world, it starts from within us, right? It starts with
Mhm.
accepting ourselves, accepting, that we deserve joy, that we deserve love, that we deserve wellness. Like all of that compassion and all of the wonderful things that we want to do outside of ourselves, we can get there, but we have to
Yeah.
go inward first, right? And so I'm with you. I think all of that, and my starting point is just what we did today. It's just like taking a moment to actually just explore what brings you
Yeah.
joy, and then remember that you can make time and space for that. no matter how busy you are, no matter how many things are going on in your life, no matter how many obligations you have, you can carve out some time, some space. If it's one day a month, if it's 1 hour a month, if it's 1 minute a day, start with
Mhm.
1 minute if you have to, but do it. Be intentional about putting yourself first, centering your wellness first, right? Doesn't mean that you don't take care of your mom or your baby or your partner or your fish or your dog. Like it doesn't mean you don't do all those things. It just means, you first. You have to learn about who you are, and remember that you deserve it, right? Just remember that you're worthy first. And the way to prove yourself that thing is to do it, is to show yourself, right? I think we had an episode where we talked about RuPaul putting his baby picture on the phone, and I did it. I found my baby
Yes.
picture. I put it
Yes.
on my phone, and I think about protecting my inner child. Um, and I don't know, there's something about looking at my baby picture and looking at how joyous I was, just born in like just born joyous, like no expectations, no anything else, just just living in joy. And it
Yeah.
makes me feel in this conversation like I also need to protect that joy that's just inherent in all of
Mhm.
us. And these are some great ways to do it. So thank you, Tessa. I love this conversation.
I do too. And I want to remind everybody that those of us who need to work on this area, which I am one of those people, need to remember that we are really good at doing this for other people, right? Like we are
Mm-hmm.
really good at giving other people their space and what they need for their own seeking of pleasure or mindfulness or intent. And we can do it for others, which means we can do it for ourselves.
Yes. And doing that practice it's gonna be the thing that starts to
Absolutely.
just, yeah, have that domino effect. So beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. As always, I feel so uplifted after our conversations. It was wonderful to get to see you through the conversation for the first time.
Hey,
And thank you all for joining us. I hope everyone stays uplifted. Until next time. See you then.
till next time, guys.